Hey guys, we're just a little early here. If you're um, on YouTube right now, and anyway, it is episode 301, and like and subscribe if you can, please. If you like and share, like, and subscribe. If you're watching this on uh, the on YouTube, that would be absolutely wonderful. I'd appreciate that. Okay, with that, um, yeah, we're live, we're on. I'm just going back to Zoom and we will be starting. This part will probably be edited out um, when it's put up full time on Zoom. But yeah, we'll be yeah, ready to go. So obviously, like and subscribe. Thank you so much. There we go. I'll be right back, Shane, just if you're wondering.
Sounds good. Hello.
Hey Shane,
Howdy.
how you doing?
Good, good. What
Trying to remember.
rewind?
It was a tornado last week.
Oh it it I mean it again, perspective out here. We live out in the middle of nowhere. There's three in the area. One took a house and barn 40 miles away from us. I mean some injuries but no deaths.
Mhm.
And then there was two of them, one, you know, 5, 6 miles away from us,
Mhm.
and then another one about 40 miles north. So it was kind of in a little
Yeah.
triangle pattern. But yeah, the stood by the sliding glass door on the back of the house, and I mean it literally push you inch and a half away from it. So it was coming in sideways. I
Wow.
I have a very if a tornado is going to land on my house where I live in the middle of nowhere, it's really time for me to meet Jesus. And that's my outlook on it, because the odds of a tornado hitting exactly where I live is pretty rare. So that's my take on it. My kid and son-in-law, he's like, I don't know that I have that feeling, but storms don't bother me too much. I've seen a lot of them, but
Well,
Do,
I'm glad that you are well.
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Hey.
do they normally go around you?
Tornadoes, yeah, normally stay 100 miles south of us. They actually have what they call a tornado alley that kind of comes right down the Big Platte River, right down Interstate 80 in Nebraska. And normally normally that's where they stay. Very rare occasion that we have tornadoes in the sand hills.
Okay.
Uh,
Brent, it's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you as well.
And Leslie, how are you tonight, Leslie?
oh, doing good. Got some bronchial stuff going on that seems to make me want to cough, and minor stuff. Certainly not tornado worthy.
Tornado worthy. Well, it's hard to top that story. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, Leslie, I know, was it last week or a couple weeks ago you said you worked through some things on here personally. I think it was last week you said it helped out a bunch. Is that still
Still
everything's still going
unresolved.
well? Yeah.
Still
Okay.
unresolved, but I don't know. I'm beginning to think that there's willful procrastination
Mm.
where they're just not wanting to hurry up and get this thing done. Apparently they are a publicly traded company, and they say, well, that adds a whole bunch of features on it. And my thought to that is simply BS. If you're in business to do business, it doesn't matter if you are a publicly traded company or not. They certainly cash my my check or my wire transfer pretty darn quick when they wanted to sell it to me, and now it's when they've got a bad piece of equipment and we've proven that it's bad, and they're saying, "Oh my," you know, and then hiding behind operations.
Yep. Layers.
Yeah, naming and labeling, which I will keep from being profane.
Oh God.
You're on the
Another.
recorded line.
Yeah, this is going to be on YouTube, so we can hold the profanity. But
Yep. Another more lessons well learned from the Blair Dunkley Experience.
excellent.
Yeah.
You say, Jackie, I see your message. You're going to have to leave early. So welcome, Carol. Can you hear us all right?
Hi, yes, I'm Carol.
We're glad
Hello,
you're
Carol.
here, Carol.
Welcome.
Hello, Carol.
Welcome.
I'm almost here. I'm
You're
Blair.
almost here. I was wondering that, Blair.
There we
Do
go.
you want to get started? Hey, Jackie.
I wanted to say hi to Carol. I've never met you before. I was going to stay offline. I'm just here listening tonight. So if you see my name, it's just because I'm listening. Usually I participate, but tonight I'm just taking a little bit of a break. But it's lovely to meet you. Hello.
Oh, hi. Hi. It's nice to meet you too. I'll be listening too. I don't so.
All right. Well, the thing is, around here, you can basically do whatever you want. Somebody make
This
a comment or
this too has been recorded.
back, but you can do whatever you want. Well, everybody have a good evening.
And you, Jackie.
Shaggy.
Yep.
Okay, Blair, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well.
Yes, welcome to Carol. She has the free gift of the 3 E's, and she's going to be listening tonight. Do you have any desire to participate tonight, Carol, or just want to listen?
I think I will just listen, unless there's something you need me to participate in, but I don't think I know enough about the topic yet, but
That's okay.
fine.
Nobody else does either. This is a new topic tonight.
Yes,
So,
Carol is less than 24 hours into my models. So,
oh wow. Congratulations. Well done. So did you
hey,
go through,
Jane.
did you read the 3 E's at all? Or just get them?
I got them. I'm pulling them up again right now.
Okay. Well, you are more than, this is actually a great one for you to be joining on, because this goes right back to the beginning, the fundamental concepts of mind models, and with the subtitle of The Foundation. So you get to learn from the bottom up, all of them. Well, and we're sort of going through this with a different level of connectedness so that you can actually figure out where you are.
Hey, Blair, do you want me to go ahead and start the introduction, or do you
Yeah,
have
might as
something
well.
else you would like to cover?
Sure, that should be fine.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the 301st episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience. My name is Patty. I'm a certified mind model coach and your co-host this evening. Your host is Blair Dunkley. He is the creator of mind models. He's tested and applied mind models in a wide variety of mental health situations with 80% effectiveness. His mind model method coaching has even been responsible for companies making not only millions, but even billions in revenue. The Blair Dunkley Experience is Blair's free gift to you, and here he coaches and teaches you using mind models so you can experience effective change in your life. So what can you expect tonight? Tonight, we talk about mind models. Mind models are simple thought frameworks to help us put names and labels to how we think. When we understand how we think, we can learn to think more effectively and create the identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable behaviors needed to finally break out of stuck states. Personally, mind models helped me overcome more than a decade of depression. They have positively impacted every area of my life, including my relationship with myself. So we welcome you tonight and look forward to getting to know you better. I do want to announce that we are on YouTube as of last week, and that the first portion of my model method coach training is taking place in August. It will be the Ignite the Buying Conversation, August 1 through 3 and 15 to 17. So if anybody is interested in talking to Blair about whether that might be a fit for you, Jane, you could post that link for people to book with Blair if, anyway, to book with Blair if that sounds like something you might be interested in. So Blair, do you want to start with the history of mind models and sharing some of that story?
Yes, I would. And yes, I have, Jane. I have started the YouTube connection, I believe. You should be able to go to YouTube and see it there. Okay, good. Brent's nodding his head yes, and I'm assuming he's able to do that. Yay, good. It worked. It's much simpler than getting on Facebook and much more robust. So that's good. Anyway, hey, so welcome everybody. This is going to be a good one, but then again, I think I say that almost every time. They're all good to me. We have some interesting material to go through tonight. So now.
So you're talking about the first two mind models that you created being naming and labeling and the question concepts.
Absolutely.
And they kind of happened concurrently.
They did. And I'd like to give you guys, might anybody be interested in a bit of a historical perspective? I don't think I've ever shared this.
No, I don't think you have either.
Yeah. So Shannon's got her thumb up. So that's good. So anyway, so at least somebody said yes. And I'm sort of playing around. So yeah. Anyway, so way back in the day, I was a ripe old age of 21 when I started uh, learning about what was called life skills back in the day. Actually, I started earlier than that. At about 17, my mom went away to be trained as a life skills coach. And then when I was 14, she came back. She did a few years as a life skills coach, trained as a coach, and then
Blair,
was asked,
could you fill people in on what life skills is?
sure, life skills is research done by the government of Canada. They spent $45 million and 5 years hiring the top psychologists, research psychologists from, I want to say around the world, but it's more accurate to say across North America, because the first two people that came that started the life skills were out of New York. And they put together a program under the auspices of the YMCA. And it was an inner city project. And they defined and discovered these things called life skills. And those things that they called life skills came into Canada via Saskatchewan. And in 1967, some government grant was available for the provinces because that was our 100th centenary of the Canadian of Canada being Canada. Sort of like your centenary celebration. Well, that was our centenary celebration, but instead of being the 200th, it was our 100th. So back in the day, so the government gave money to everybody or to the provinces, and Saskatchewan decided to put it into human development. They had earlier run a test. Well, they had basically 93% of the incarcerated population at the time was Native. 7% was non-Native. They wanted to see if they had prejudice in the system. They found that out of the 94% was no identifiable prejudice. 3% was identified as prejudice or potential prejudice in the court system, but they couldn't identify how come such a large 93% of the population was First Nations, when First Nations made up only approximately 15% of the population in the province. So how come it was so disproportionate? And they came down to a realization that that group did not know how to cope and problem solve, and therefore were not successful like everybody else. So that's the background where life skills was created. And they brought these two psychologists from the inner city of New York who had been doing work with the, hey, Jackie. Jackie's a trained life skills coach as well, and she's got her manual. So fill me in. What did I screw up on right now?
This is my logbook,
Oh, yeah.
the group logbook. You're required to do in life skills. It's like a 3-month, 9 to, could be midnight or even 24, 48 hours.
Yep.
It's funny because I'm just in a place where I've been storing stuff for like over 20 years and I'm getting to find all of this stuff. I can't believe I could put my hand on this. I know I have the manual, but it has all of the lessons in here. And I was just looking back on page 15 because we actually had to have a committee to make this, which was another level of understanding and learning how to communicate and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the first exercises that we actually did was sitting and establishing eye contact.
Yeah.
That's how basic it is. Now, that it's not basic, because when you really look at it, how many people actually establish true, authentic eye contact?
Exactly.
People who have shame or not feeling good about themselves or have something to hide, or they're not going to give you, predominantly they're not going to give you eye contact. So it was an
Correct.
exercise about eye contact and how did we feel. Of course there were no words allowed. Anyway, that was just like one of the, the little baby steps, the little baby steps that
Yep.
we talk about. That's one of them. Anyway, I think I might have a look through this tonight.
Okay. Well,
Anyway,
I need to keep going because otherwise we'll be here for a very long time, because the life skill story could take me all night and I don't have time to do that. So we won't be diving into that. But anyway, the life skills research defined these skills, these things that were called life skills, and they were focused on basically coping and problem solving. At life skills training centers, the college that I was, and life skills colleges, where myself and where Jackie was trained through, we added eventually another layer to that. So it was coping, problem solving, and success. So how do we get people that are stuck, resourceful, and successful? We didn't call it resourceful as much. There was a lot of focus on resilience, on flexibility, on the ability to adapt and shift and change. But that's what really life skills came down to at the end of the day.
the
I
word
was
choices. That's what's
absolutely,
coming back to my head is
yeah,
choices. Resourceful
lots
was
of choices.
later, as you said, as it was developed.
Yeah. But while there was a lot of research done on choices versus decisions, by the way, that were done at life skills, well, not at life skills, in the creation of life skills, they had an entire research station that had group rooms and video cameras and wall of two-way mirrors where the psychologists would literally sit back and observe and take notes of what they were seeing and the behaviors. And they'd take these behaviors and then turn them into what was eventually called was identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable. So basically, it was a scientific approach to human behavior at the time, back in the 60s, late 60s and early 70s, through 67 through 72. We took up I mean, Life Skills College took up the cause of life skills and continued the research directly and indirectly for, well, I did it while I was there for 17 and a half years, focused in on that, refining and starting to recognize that there were gaps because the government shut down the funding for life skills. They had a lot of the foundational stuff done, but they didn't have some of it to be pulled together. And I sort of picked up the research part and recognized that there were gaps. They had one page on a thing called, well, they called it question, wasn't question concepts, because I created that. Oh, information seeking questions. That's what it was called. Information seeking questions. And it was who, what, where, when, why, and how. And that was great, but it was very short, very terse description of what was there. And it was supposed to be more or less complete, but I found that to be very incomplete when just observing my students. And that and naming and labeling question concepts. it was really interesting because in one of my, I think it was my second group that I had these two young men in there, both 18 years of age, one from the wrong side of the tracks, but a diligent hard worker, and the other one born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And the kid with the silver spoon, personally didn't like him that much, but he would ask questions. And this was when I got the construct, the idea of I need to take a look at questioning, because these people are learning how to cope and problem solve more effectively. So okay, I don't find the stream. Did you go into okay. Can we worry about this later? Because I want to keep going on a flow here. Because it is being recorded. So we'll figure that one out. So basically, the two young men, both similar age, and in a weird way, different sides of the track, but their reason for being there was very similar. And it was funny because I started this idea. I saw the two of them, and the kid from the wrong side of the track, he would bang his head against a brick wall, sort of like going with his forehead getting bloodied, with asking questions and working hard at trying to move ahead, yet he didn't seem to move ahead. And he would question and be diligent in trying to move ahead. Yet the other kid would just ask these questions, and spontaneously everything seemed to make sense, not only to him, but the group and me too. And that's where I got the idea of tracking questions from those two, because the young right side of the track kid was zipping ahead very quickly, where the other one was pounding his head against a brick wall and getting nowhere fast. So I started tracking the questions. And in the next group, I came up with this idea of, we were working with these students for 4 months, and I came up with a protocol, having been through a little bit of university and psych and knowing how to do statistics and figuring stuff out. I put together a plan to create this research on questioning. Anyway, long story short on that, I did the questioning. I created this model where it was the quality of the question asked determined the effectiveness. So I quickly put together a plan to test quality. I found 3 research papers back in the day on questioning. One said the quality, and it was all around quality of question asked, because it was the same thing that I had. And I found these 3 research paper. One said that it does work. The other one said that it doesn't work. And the third one was leaning a little bit more towards that it does work, but its whole process was very different than the other 2. So there was no consistency in their methodologies. So I decided to take the hypothesis that it did work, because 2 out of 3 were going there. And so I created the model and did the study, tracking my students' questions for 3 months. And at the end of the group, I crunched my numbers, and I took them back to my math professor, and he was complimenting me on my statistics and what I wound up doing. And he said, "You got your math completely correct." And so all of this means that none of this stuff is relevant. In other words, it had 0 statistical relevance of the quality of the question asked. And I remember in my office, crumpling up my research, having it fly through the air, and midway through the air, I had this epiphany. What if it's actually simpler than the quality of the question asked? What if it's simply the question asked? Well, I thought I could whip together definitions and have everything. Yeah, Jackie, it was like the boom moment for me. Mind-blowing event. And I thought, boom, no problem. I'll get this stuff banged out in like 6 months tops. 6.5 years later, I finished the question concepts. So I finally figured them out. And during the process of that 6 months, I realized that naming and labeling things to get an effective name and label was almost or equally important to the question concepts themselves. Because I realized that the name of the concepts, which is actually, when you look at the question concepts graph, it's 4 columns. And there's 4 pieces that all question concepts share. But the information in each of those columns is different between the question concepts themselves. And I realized the concept is not the word who, what, when, where, why, or how. Those are just names and labels. Besides, when I started checking this out with the university, and I went to different linguistic departments, they confirmed that every language has more or less the same 6 question concepts. Anybody speak a language different than English here on the show? No? No? Okay. Well, normally I do, and if you speak French, if you speak German, Latin, Italian, doesn't matter. Even Chinese and Japanese have ways of asking questions that fit within the 6 question concepts. So, well, then Leslie just threw down a bit of French. Then pourquoi is why in French. Yet when I broke out the function of a why, and what does the function of a why do? Well, it creates reasons, excuses, rationalizations, and justification. In French, it does exactly the same thing. It has this area of time tense. It has this area that is externally verifiable or internally verifiable. It has this area that loads, either predominantly makes both of these areas physiologically load in your brain simultaneously. But which area is bigger, lights up more in your brain? Is it your emotional area of your brain or your information area, your cognitive? And the research that I had seen shows that a why question concept, the theory is it puts more light into the area of your brain, like it lights up on the computer screen more in the emotional area, but simultaneously also lights up a much smaller area of your cognitive. So, but yet if you use a true what, the information is reversed. So it's interesting how the brain physiologically operates. So that's a rapid overview of the question concepts. But it means that, okay, does somebody want to play along with me? Who will be a volunteer for me? I'm going to yell at you, but
I don't like when you do this.
I got broad shoulders.
Okay, good. Okay, so Shane, what did you do that for? Huh? Just tell me.
I thought the idea was a good idea at the time.
Okay, now, which question concept did you did I actually use? A who, a what, a when, a where, a why, or a how? What does it feel like to you when I yelled at you? What did you do that for? Tell me right now. Right now.
Well, you use why in there.
No, I didn't. I used the word what.
What
I did
what
not
did you do that
But
for?
that's the
But it's
correct
a disguised
That's-
why though, because
That's
you
right. It is a disguised why.
yeah.
And so many
Well done,
people,
Shane.
even when I don't use the word why, I use the word what. What did you do that for? I'm causing your brain to hear it as a why. Your brain has your brain is hardwired. I believe everybody's brain is hardwired for those 6 question concepts.
Well,
And
from birth, from childhood.
correct. You're literally born with the capacity for this kind of language, and it's filtered into these structures. And yes, Jackie says tone absolutely is one of those things, because my tone loads the emotion, and whys load emotion. I say first, but the dominance is emotion, and then it goes into information.
Well, it's
But
also when you're asking the question, why did you do that? You're back in the past. So
correct.
the whys take you back in the past.
Correct. And that means that is it internally verifiable or externally verifiable? It's your memory, it's your recollection, and it takes you back to an internal state in your past. And you're going to give me a reason, an excuse, a rationalization, or justification. And what did you give me? It seemed like a good idea at the time. You justified. Okay? So that's what whys must do. Now, there's lots of ways of using the word why, which actually is a disguised what. And so, why is the sky blue? Well, the sky is blue because the light is refracted off dust particles in the atmosphere, and the average size of the dust particles literally make a blue tone to the sky because they absorb everything else but the blue tone, or whatever it is. It's a refractive thing with dust particles. That's how come we have a blue sky. Now, the interesting thing about that is not it's sort of a reason, but it's not an excuse, not a rationalization, not a justification, but it is a list of one or more things or events. And that's what a what is. That's the function of a what, to create a list of one or more things or events. Jackie.
I mean, there's way more depth to this, but one of the most outstanding things for me was to notice when somebody was using a disguise why.
Yes.
And they're saying, "What are you doing that for?" And it's like, it stops you in your tracks. With being able to recognize that in that, you remember how we talk about the split second where you can make that pivot.
Yep.
And answering it in a what. So
that's correct.
Yourself into the now, and you're then also not allowing them to be in control of it all.
Correct. Yep, that's absolutely true. You can pivot.
It's a lifesaver because you don't get triggered by people anymore. Well, you might, but you bite your tongue, you notice awareness of whatever all of that stuff is, and then it's like, I always have to have the breath, but this all happens like that.
Yeah.
Yes. The first time you do it, it feels like it's a year. It's like, whoa, trying to like slow yourself down and get out of that emotional to pull yourself back. Anyway.
Yep. So anyway, the whole thing around like naming and labeling the question concepts and being able to name and label the question concepts, just the titles of these concepts and not the meanings of the concept, that was a game changer. That's where everything completely changed in my mind. Well, in other people's minds, because it made the question concepts identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable. And Jackie was just talking about disguised question concepts, so she could go out there and test it and see exactly what's going on in her life or her life situation and be able to make the pivot, the change, and practice it for a few months or a few weeks, and then poof, she's got it locked in as a bit of a behavior. Now, it has to be activated. You have to think about it. You have to get conscious around it. But now you have choice. And that's huge. Jane.
So in the naming and labeling,
Yep.
I find that, like Jackie, what I do now is I try to identify what am I feeling. And if I can identify, that feeling, then I can do the pivot, make a choice. But there are times when I'm stuck. I don't know what it is that I'm feeling. I don't have the right name for it. I don't have the right label for it, but I know the feeling. And so, but I can compare and contrast that to, am I feeling calm? Am I curious? Or am I feeling something else?
Right.
And so, am I feeling guilty? Am I feeling inadequate? Am I feeling excited? Each one of those things, defensive, and that's where that yelling thing. Am I feeling defensive? If I'm feeling defensive, then I can do like Jackie says and stop myself and say, is that appropriate to the question?
Hey, then how long do you think that took you to do that?
It's taken me 2 years of being here on the Blair Dunkley Experience to figure this out.
Okay, warranted. But how, when you're talking about it now and you're recognizing
the feelings that I have identified and labeled, named and labeled, I can now pull those up instantly.
Well done.
Yeah.
Which actually gets me to another very important area, which was describing feelings. And here is the link to the feeling wheel that we created something very similar to this at Life Skills College. This is one I just pulled off, or somebody else pulled off the internet in one of my courses and said, here's something we can all look at. So it's right there. And it's great because if you click on that and you see it, it's got a few hundred feeling words in here. And you can go into some groupings of things like more, I can't say exactly fundamental, because angry is actually a secondary emotion in there, but you have positive emotions and you have what I generally refer to as negative emotions. And so those are some key things. Now, again, in the research, you start taking a look at anger is a secondary emotion because underneath the anger is some kind of hurt. In anger, hurt is there. You can get angry due to embarrassment, due to a lot of other primary feelings, but hurt is and pain are the two most dominant primary negative feelings that we have. So it basically falls into the pleasure pain area. But putting words to these things, naming and labeling our feelings gives us control over them. In fact, naming and labeling anything gives us the ability to manage and control it or ourselves. And that's basically it for the that naming, labeling, and question concepts piece. Yeah, well, wow. We burned through a ton of time. So what was effective about that for you, Shane? Absolutely nothing. No.
No, I love, you know, finding going back, and I mean, I've heard the story a couple times before as I've been here, but of where all this stuff comes from. But I mean, revisiting the stuff like Jane was talking about, and Jacqueline, that we have choices. Like, I mean, you said there's 200 some plus words in that emotional chart. I mean, the choices that we have and that we can work on, and we can rewire our mind in an instant to know what we're feeling, name and labeling it, and choosing, is that the most effective word to come out of my mouth, or can I find one that's better? I mean, is this going to effectively make the conversation or make the situation positive, or is it going to blow up in your face? So it's amazing that name and label does, just like you said, enables us to control our emotions. I love it.
Exactly. And we then have choice.
Yes.
Most people don't perceive that they have choice over their emotions. They just feel whatever they're feeling. Even if you can name and label it, you have choice. But with actively naming and labeling, you'll find that you have multiple feelings at the exact same time. And I've shared my story of my my eldest daughter when she was about 2. And I say youngest because I don't think Victoria was born yet. But anyway, we got into a bit of a spat, and I was angry, and I was starting to sound and behave in an angry manner when I was trying to get our daughter to come on back, like get out of the shopping center and go back to the car and do that. She was almost in a tantrum like state. But I pivoted to a feeling of love. And do I love my daughter? Even though I'm very angry with her, do I love my daughter? And the answer was yes. So I focused on the actual love that I had for my daughter, and my tone of my voice and my behaviors changed. And then that instantly changed her. So she wasn't feeling attacked by me, so she didn't have to defend. And when she didn't have to defend, we could talk, and I could understand her feelings. And when she had her feelings understood, there was no need for the debate or the argument to continue because she felt understood. And then we could carry on with getting into the car and going home, actually.
7:42 p.m.
Anyway, so that's sort of one of many examples of where naming and labeling has helped me a ton in my life, just because I could name and label what was going on so effectively and focus on that name and label and the feeling of that, love. And it transported me to a different set of behaviors, like internally.
Blair, when we're
Yes.
looking at identifying things, naming and labeling is actually the process for identifying. Is that
Yes, it is.
accurate?
Yes, it is.
So if we identify things, I'm looking at your I am process: identify, apply, master.
Okay.
So,
Can we go back to identify, repeat, and duplicate, or do you feel like I did that one?
well, we haven't really focused much on duplicating,
Yeah, no, we
but
haven't.
I do think that the identify and the identifiable, repeatable has been covered well.
Been done. Okay. Okay, and we could do the identifiable in the I am process like you suggested. So let's do the I am process, then
I was
pop
just
back.
thinking it would be a different application, because you're talking about identifying feelings,
Yes,
therefore being able to choose. But what else can we identify that gives us a power of choice? So can we identify what we want to change or what we want to achieve or where we want to go? You know, even just identifying what we want is really kind of a big deal that I think people kind of skip over sometimes.
absolutely. So true. Because you say, I want better. I want something better, or I want more. Well, what is more? What is better? Like, I want more money. Okay, so what gets you to that point, and specifically, how much more money do you want? Well, I don't know. I just want more. Well, if you go, I don't know, I just want more, that's probably what you'll get is the I don't know, because you don't figure out how to obtain that thing to, well, $2 million. There you go. You want to attain $2 million. Well, now you can start breaking it down into the steps to attain that. And that is, it's possible. Now, what has you feel well, like something that causes you to feel positive about yourself, because generally people don't make that kind of money unless they are doing something that they love. And so people have to figure out what they like or love in order for them to make that kind of money. So not just what they're good at. And a lot of people do things that they are good at, but they don't like doing that. Therefore, they don't put their whole self into it. And so when they go into the identify, they identify that part, but the apply part is done partially, but they don't master it well, so they don't connect with it as in a way that makes it highly effective and moves it forward. So that's really where that is. So anyway,
So in application,
yeah,
for example, if we use my models as a process to get us, like, Shane is like, he's a better version of himself every day. Well, how is that happening? I mean, are my models a part of that happening for you, Shane?
Oh yeah. I mean, the 3 E's, the effective versus ineffective, all the name and labeling, the just knowing how to choose your emotions. Like, I mean, that's
So
I don't
would you
want to
say that
really-
you've practiced a lot of these in the last year?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I have a phrase that, just smile and nod. I mean, just smile and nod. Like, I don't own that problem. You own that problem. And I'm just not even going to engage with it. So I'm just going to smile and nod.
mm-hmm.
We're
Well,
all
that's
smiling and nodding at you, Shane.
Yep, exactly. And that is one of the processes in the mind models, which is who owns the problem.
Yeah.
So problem identification, who can actually do something about it. The person who actually, it's their problem, they're the only person that can actually fix the problem. I can give suggestions, recommendations all day long. But until you, assuming it's your problem, until you engage with it, your problem doesn't go away. And you cannot put it over to somebody else and have it be their problem and have it go away. You can pretend that it does, but that goes into other applications of where we get to with some of the mind models with accountability, responsibility, and authority.
May I ask you a question, Shane?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you know when you choose a feeling, do you feel like you're giving anything up? Because people might think we're trying to like deny or something, and I'm just curious how that impacts you when you choose a feeling over something that maybe not so effective?
I don't know that it's giving anything up. It's a choosing to be in a more effective behavior for sure. Even like going into behave versus belief, is it belief versus behavior?
Yep, that's one of them.
And so no, I mean, I don't know, Jackie. I don't feel like I give anything up. I just choose to be a better version. Like I might have flew off the handle, being married for almost 30 years and four grown daughters kind of gives you some patience too. So, but no,
Yeah.
Blair's really, this whole little experience has really helped with that, is where, I mean, you just don't have to engage in that kind of stuff. If something's, if it's not my problem, I don't have that attitude like, well, it's not my problem, I ain't worried about it. Because I'll gladly give suggestions if you ask for them, but I'm not gonna try to prove my point to you, or I'm, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which goes into one of the three P's, which is the three P's of questioning: proving, positioning, or process.
Yep.
Process always wins.
Because I remember when I was choosing my feelings, I thought I had every right to be freaking furious.
Yep.
Like I really did. And I thought
you do, but you do.
I was going to say, you do have that right. You have every right to be furious if that's working for you.
yeah. But it's the behavior that goes along with that. And when I started to feel that I was able to choose, or I actually had the option to make a choice, it was like a load taken off. And I didn't feel like I was giving up the anger. Anyway, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but anyway.
Well, I want to
Go ahead.
expand on that just slightly, because what you wind up being able to do when you choose your emotion, you're not choosing things that aren't there. And at some point, we'll get into describing feelings again and talk about how people literally choose something that they're currently feeling, but you might not be consciously aware of it. But when you
too, Blair, don't you think is accepting, like you gave the example, Jackie, of anger. You don't want to deny that it's there. It's there. It's real, but can you accept that it's there and that it's there with something else?
It gets down to like acknowledgement or acceptance of that. And it's like, okay. That's my feeling. I've just categorized. And
actually, I try and put it this way, Jackie. That's one of my feelings. But which one? Because I can only behave to basically one feeling. So it's whichever one I choose to behave to, that's the one that will be presented to the world. But I can feel all of these feelings.
Yeah.
Now, what do I want to behave with? Which one? And that's the key.
Well, hopefully I will be choosing effective rather than
exactly. And that's one of the things that I do is I ask myself which feeling that I'm having might be the most effective in this situation. And then I answer that question to myself. And I go, oh, that's the feeling. Right. So I can feel torn up inside, but I can always also feel proud of my decision simultaneously. So, all of that are possibilities. Now, I may not have been that easily swayed before to find pride in my choices. I just would react with my feelings because I never realized I could actually choose. And when I can actually choose, I can start processing the behaviors that go with that feeling that I chose. And that is a game changer. That's a big deal. Hey, Leslie, what's going through your brain? I just saw you nodding there.
I'm just understanding and absorbing.
Okay.
I didn't write this down again fast enough. The 3 P's of questions.
The 3 P's of questioning are prove. That's the first one. Second one is position. You use questions to position. Okay.
And then process.
And then process.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. No worries. Man, we just got into number 1-ish.
Yes, I know. I'm looking at that too. 1 and maybe just a little scrape off of number 2.
Yeah,
Brent,
exactly.
do you have any thoughts about the discussion, things that you might add from your experience with my models?
Not necessarily. I think everybody's hit on with the topic pretty well, and the same things I experienced. The ability to evaluate is the big one for me. Like being able, and then using evaluation, the 3 E's, and then awareness and notice, awareness, notice, process, understanding. That has helped a lot. Like the first 2, just starting, noticing something, and then being aware. That is, to get to change, to be able to see the difference. And that's
Yeah.
where your feelings and noticing those, like what's happening around and what's going on, and then being able to put name and label to the feelings that I'm experiencing, what's going on. So that way, if I experience that again, I know if it was effective this time or not, and the next time I can change that.
Right, which is that foundational concept of being repeatable. So if you notice it, you do it, and it's working, with a name and label, it lets you repeat it.
Yeah. So identify it. You got a name and label to identify something, to externalize it. And you're able to see, and then you can start that evaluation. Is that accurate? Is what I'm feeling or seeing inside accurate to what's on the outside?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, that's I think I have been able to go through this, but I was trying to experience when I first started and understanding what it was I was going through. So it's just the further you get, it gets a little more difficult to pinpoint exactly all those things you're going through. But yeah, that was.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I didn't add to the fundamentals here was the whole thing about congruency. Is that actually does need to be brought in here, because congruent gets paired with using the mind models and being able to be congruent so that you are appropriate to time and place, but you also have congruency to yourself, like the internal self, and is what you think you are projecting being perceived by others as the same thing. So are you being congruent? And that is so crucial, so that you get to start managing how things are, because a lot of people think that they should be perceived this way, yet when they get feedback in a given situation, they aren't perceived the way they think they should be. And usually they blame that on others rather than knowing that it's them being incongruent. So that incongruency is a tough one for people to see when they don't have like appropriate as to time and place. They don't have appropriate behaviors, because appropriateness to time and place is a societal thing, not an individual thing. But if you hold yourself as so important, then the world revolves around you. Therefore, everything should be, I'm completely okay 100% of the time. And that's rarely the case, even with somebody as nearly perfect as me. That's tongue in cheek.
Yes, we recognize that.
Good.
So I want to back up just a little bit with duplicatable. Duplicatable has more to do with affecting the people around you, doesn't it? In terms of
It does. It's, can you show people the how you behave in a way that actually it has a lot to do with what I was talking about. It's appropriate to time and place and congruency. So when duplicatability means that you're modeling, you're role modeling the mind model in a way that other people can see the shift in you. Hey, Shane, going back to you and Leslie, both of you have not that long ago shared bits where other people have seen you as changed. Yeah. And what do you think causes that? Shane and then Leslie. Shane, what do you think caused that?
Well, a lot of it is just effective behavior. I mean, just choosing my mantra of trying to be a better version of my yesterday self. I want to be a better person today than I was yesterday, and so on. Just to continue to grow as a person and continue to engage in effective behaviors.
Yes, but how?
How interactions,
What's
situations.
changed? What's then changed? Because you had interactions before. What's changed?
Just more effective interactions, just not just well, I mean,
So how did you determine?
Shane's got an ego and Shane's got his own opinion and he's got to think that he's right all the time. And now it's just like, okay, well,
So now he doesn't think that he's necessarily right all the time, but then again, he's not wrong either.
yeah. But I don't have to stand in that conversation and beat that dead horse till they understand that I'm right and they're wrong. I don't have
Which
to.
is proving and positioning, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. In other words, you started finding a process for yourself, a way through to be able to, and sometimes that way through is just listening.
Yeah.
And accepting and understanding.
Jane, raise your hand. Go ahead, Jane.
I was going to say what people, whether they realize what they're observing, but they can feel is that your behavior has changed.
Exactly.
You may not be able to identify what it is specifically, but they can feel it because they are no longer feeling like, okay, he's trying to, he's attacking me. He's trying to prove this. He's trying, they feel that, okay, something's different, and then they can respond accordingly. So they feel the external verification of your internal change, and it shows by your behavior.
Shannon?
So what you're really talking about here is practicing evaluation versus judgment with yourself and with other people on a moment by moment basis.
Exactly.
If you're evaluating yourself and others, the self-other situation Venn diagram, if you're evaluating and looking at the data from that perspective and not wielding it as a weapon and judging yourself or other people, then you're able, I feel like that's a huge piece of the conversation all evening. One of the mind models that allows for so many of the names and labels and the choosing emotions and the duplicating and all of those things to be made possible is to choose to stay in a state of evaluation. And that's part of what allows you to accept, if you are angry and you're having anger, to evaluate, ask yourself some questions. What's causing this? okay, that, and then you can move on, accept it, and continue forward, choosing a more effective emotion. So I think that one the whole way through, if you're looking for something that's like practicable that I'm seeing in different people's conversations throughout all of these different things you're talking about, evaluation versus judgment is a really key piece to allowing a process to flow forward in an
Yep.
effective direction, unencumbered.
Yep. And effective versus ineffective, external versus internal. Because if you're judging yourself, it's very difficult to recognize your self-judgment when you're judging yourself because you're so caught up in it. But when you're not judging yourself, you can recognize that you've done it and you do it to yourself. But when you're in it, you can now, when you start recognizing external versus internal, and you see the difference and you can feel that difference, then you can start stopping yourself from beating yourself up. Whereas before, it was almost an impossibility. And when I work with people with depression, that's one of the things that they wind up doing. They wind up self-judging, like incredibly. But the more you point that out, that it's a self-judgment and that they could start evaluating, then all of a sudden you just have to ask them, what might they do differently? And just that simple question of what might you do differently now gets them out of the past or projecting into the future, gets them into the present, and then all of a sudden everything starts shifting for them. Yeah. Because we can only change in the present. Okay. Leslie, any comments? You look deep in thought.
That I am. Going back to 2 weeks ago in this predicament that I'm in, I'm just,
Right.
it continues.
Yes.
And I've been very cognizant of my speech and my emails. And I'm wondering right now if they are not willfully delaying this process. So I'm just looking at these things that we've talked about here tonight and thinking, how can I use these to create the next email, which I think has to go up a level in up another corporate level to other than the directors that I'm dealing with.
Well, it's about building a process.
Yes.
And
that's why I asked again these 3 Ps. I know I've written it down many times before.
That's okay.
But to have it now, I have proven I do have a position. It's now waiting for the process, and this process needs to be encouraged.
You need to clarify the process, and you are part of the process. If you just give them the power of it's their process, then they can stall you indefinitely. But if you are co-creating the process together with them, even if the process has been created, you can start adjusting the process and recreate it as a co-created process. Go ahead, Shane.
That's effective.
That's effective. By the way, if Christine was here, that's like she's a world-class negotiator.
Yes.
And she jumps on here.
My kind of a question to you, Leslie, is, as you typing in your email to your next level up, your corporate or whatever, the question of, I'm curious to know your not your timeline, Leslie, but the person you're dealing with. I'm curious to know the timeline of this, of which this is going to be resolved.
Exactly.
And in order, that brings to mind, in order for a process to be effective, not only do names and labels have to be present, but you have to be specific versus general. It's a
There you go.
combination of those
Which
two.
for Carol is another mind model, general versus specific.
It's just raining mind models.
Sorry,
Hey.
Carol, you're sort of getting a deluge
Hope,
of
hope you
mind
don't get
models.
a writer's cramp there, Leslie.
Yeah,
That's okay. We've got a few notes down here, and it's all helpful. Thank you.
yep. Okay, great. It's almost 10 after, so we should probably think about wrapping up.
Okay. Carol, just for your information, what we do at the end of this thing that we do here, we do a wrap up and we go around and we ask people if they want to participate. If they don't, it's fine, they pass. But they put a number 1 to 10 on the value that they got out, not what kind of job did Blair do or what kind of job did I do, but what value did they take home and one thing that was significant to them. So I'm going to go around and I will ask people to contribute. If you do not want to participate tonight in that, that's just fine. But is it okay when you see some other people do this? Is it okay if I ask you?
Yes, that's great.
Okay. So
Good.
Shane, can we start with you?
Sure. I'll give it a 9 out of 10 tonight again, just revisiting the name and labeling and again the whole process of Blair's journey with the rewiring the mind and everything, the 3 E's, and then of course talking with Leslie, the 3 P's, the prove, position, process is a great one. Brent mentioned the Nanpu, and I mean Shannon spit out 3 or 4 good mind models. I mean they're all good. It just takes a lot to get a hold of them. But yeah, 9 out of 10. I'm glad we made it the whole session. Christine,
Yes, between your emergency room visits and tornadoes, I mean, we were beginning to feel like maybe you're making excuses. What can I say?
I sent Jane a video. She knows there's a good storm going on. But
We'll give our
Wow.
best to Christy. Tell her we miss her.
She's right there. Hi, Christy.
Oh, I didn't see you back there, Christy. I'm sorry. We do miss you.
Yeah.
Jackie put hers in the chat. She says, I keep coming back as it's different every time. Amazing. Even though we're saying we're starting from the beginning, and 9, 10 in and out dealing with tenants. So she's on and off and in and out, but that's her wrap up. So Leslie, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Yes, thank you. I've got a 9 for tonight. Thank you for some help with my predicament. Again, 2 weeks ago it was helpful. Tonight again, this review is helpful.
Great.
And I think that I like this word co-creating. It's not just my problem, it's their problem too.
Mm.
Yep.
So in acknowledging that this situation has been co-created is, I think there's a lot of value in that.
Mhm.
And then the question to move this process forward to get it done.
Yep, we got it resolved.
So a big 9. That's block letter 9 tonight.
Okay. Good
Thank
9.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brent, would you like to share your perspective tonight?
Sure. Give it a go. Well, I enjoyed it. There was a couple of new things that I learned, like question concepts where Blair came up with like, I believe I may have heard it before, but I don't recall, was the quality of questions, that it was just the question of itself. It's simpler than that, like that little piece, that process on how you came up with that.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. So, I mean, that little piece I think I heard, but like the backstory, I think there was more to it that
Yep.
I heard this time. So, it was wonderful learning, hearing that. But, one thing you remember, I hope Shannon, if I may, was that you had mentioned you said I feel that when you were explaining something to Blair, and it popped up to me was like the feeling thoughts, that whole thing. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna point it out right now. You're busy, so you're talking. I'm like, but I have started to notice that quite often, like every day somewhere I hear it. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
what? It's a thought, but I'm like, oh, they're feeling it. So quite quite interesting how when you hear something new that you'll start to see it around and be able to identify it. So just something a little quick there that something new I picked up. Didn't quite fit in tonight, but you know it works. Started with the feelings things. So I was kind of describing feelings and having that in there. So
Yep.
figured it's a little more in depth, but but I would give it an 8 for me tonight. A little more in the backstory. So, and you said we're just getting into the beginning, like we really haven't scratched
Yeah.
this,
Yeah, we've got 6 points and we've scratched 1.5. So we'll
Yeah.
probably.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
How do y'all feel about continuing this foundation stuff next week? Y'all good with that?
Yeah. I think it's. Oh, by the way, the YouTube stuff. I found the video. It's on a new
Okay.
channel.
Yes, it is.
Okay, same name but a new channel. Like the same name but an old channel. There's an old original one channel you have, but it's got the same name. So that's what got confusing.
Does it have a different picture?
Yeah, it's got the new one's got the brain on it, and the old one's got a picture of Blair.
Let me go look for it.
Yeah.
Okay, can you pull up the link and post it in the group,
Yeah. let's
please?
see. Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Brent. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Carol, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Yes. So I was typing up a paragraph, which I'll put in the chat. I was really intrigued about the development of the questions, the study for the questions. So definitely a 10 out of 10. The quality of questions versus the types of questions, and how whether it's like a what, why, or how it's connected to different parts of the brain, from my understanding.
Yes.
I also thought it was really fascinating because I've taught elite students in South Korea and I've taught at the jail school. And I think, yeah, there's definitely a difference between education and intellect. So often kids from more affluent backgrounds have access to better education, but that doesn't necessarily reflect their intelligence.
Correct.
So yeah, I'll put that in the chat. But I thought that whole thing, the whole questioning, as a classroom teacher now, and when the school year starts back up, well, I'll be teaching again in a couple of weeks at a program, but I'm going to be more intentional with like the why, the what, the how, and how I'm writing those objectives, because they're not just.
Basically, I could just share this with you, if you don't mind. Simon Sinek brought in this whole idea as why, like know your why, and everybody loves the why. Well, people love the why because it's the most used question, but it is the one that causes us to get stuck. Because the why question concept itself is a past-based information, and you cannot change your past. Therefore, it's not like if you're trying to know yourself and know your why, most people will go back to the past. But people who are very successful don't answer the question why the same way that the average people do. Because average people will go to the past, but super successful people will stay in the present. And it will be a disguised what. So that why is technically a disguised what.
That is so true. I have a grandma who's almost 100 years old, and there's nothing wrong with her, and she's like totally functioning, and she always says that we're not allowed to ask why.
Yep.
She's we're not allowed to ask why. That's up to God. But
Well, that's her. See, because when I did my research, that comes from the whole construct of reasons, excuses, rationalizations, and justifications. And other than some reasons can be present tense, but excuses, rationalizations, and justifications can only be past based, as well as most reasons are past based. So a what is always generates a list of one or more things or events. And when you create a list of things or one or more things or events, and what's are predominantly present tense, then you can build an action plan in the present with a list of what's. And when you get your action plan and you do the action plan, the doing of the action plan is your how. Because when I get into teaching question concepts, you cannot tell me how to do anything ever. You can show me, but you cannot tell me. Because hows are only actions. And when you're telling me how, it is actually this whole idea of a list of one or more things or events that you've listed out, you've chunked it down into steps. But that list of how to do it that's an action plan, is a what. But it's called a how. We need the how. We need to process how, because we need to do actions. Because if we don't do it, it doesn't count. But some really bright people think about things, but they don't do anything about it because they think that creating that list is enough. And then they move on to the next list that they generate. So anyway, just sharing.
Thank you, Blair.
You're welcome.
Shannon, would you like to give us your wrap up tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Like Brent, I found in the very beginning that little piece of history and part of how you were studying questions early on in the question concepts. And it's not so much the, question like very, very, very early on when I was studying, I had these notebooks full of trying to write down your exact phrasing on questions, because I was like, I'm going to make flashcards, all these perfect questions to ask and memorize them, and it will be great. And it's so much fun to watch the layers of how you developed the question concepts and what really the thought process, in a person's mind, what's going on, neurologically to create the effective results. And I think that story in the beginning, I've heard pieces of it, but not the whole thing. And so that was really interesting to hear and be refreshed on, and also to remember the importance of tone. Anytime you do that example, it's really for me, the biggest standout was to remember the importance of staying out of judgment and in evaluation, and how that impacts tone, and how tone then radiates out to absolutely everything else that you touch in your day. And that connection there, because even if I'm asking myself a question, my own tone that I'm using with myself impacts that. And so it's the layers in there, with the self, other, and situation Venn diagram, and remembering evaluation versus judgment is not one that I really took to very early on. It made me pretty chippy, and it's really fun to see it kind of floating, because that was the lens that I was listening through the whole thing that
Yep.
particular mind model just happened to be the one that I heard in every single person's commentary. I was like, oh, well, that happens, from this. And it all flows out of that state of evaluation. Because then when you're evaluating, you can identify, repeat, and duplicate. And when you're evaluating, you can choose your emotions and instead of beating yourself up with them. And when you're evaluating, so that was fun for me because I don't normally feel that way about that mind model. At least it wasn't in the past, so it was
Right.
fun to kind of have a new lens on that one, on just how that popped up into my brain through the whole time. So that was really fun for me. So that would be a 9 tonight. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shannon. I really valued the history too. There's something.
That's just a snippet of the history.
I know it is. It's just you're just gonna have to keep leaking it in here because
Yep.
I just think that that these my models have such deep roots
Yes.
and have been proven so over so much time, provides a real stability for what we're using to create our processes in everyday life. And I just appreciated that part of the sharing tonight, Blair.
Yep.
So Jane, would you like to give us your wrap up and take us out, please?
Why, thank you. Yes. Every time I come, I learn something new every time. And so I'm going to give it a 9 because I know there's always something that I miss. And going back and looking at the replay is always beneficial to me. Especially if I'm going, oh, what was that he just did? I need to really, really learn that one. I can do that. So I just appreciate that this is here. So thank you, Blair. And
You're
thank you
welcome.
everybody else here because it's what enriches the whole process. Whenever Shannon speaks, wow, I always go, oh yeah, he said that. And wow, I never thought of it that way. And so I appreciate you all being here because I do struggle with putting names and labels to things. And as I use the mind models, like I said earlier, after 2 years, I'm still learning the right words. And so I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate,
Hey, you know what? 40 years later, and I'm still practicing.
yeah, and you've shared that with us in different episodes. So now that we're up on YouTube, you guys can go back and check this out, again, if you'd like. We do try to put the replay back up in Facebook. It's usually later in the week, Thursday or Friday. If you happen to have a chance to go and put a comment or ask a question or whatever, it will make the algorithm in Facebook show it to more people within the group. And so that's another way of coming back and saying thank you to Blair. We will see everybody next week.
And if you can share,
on
like,
YouTube.
and subscribe on YouTube.
Yes.
Yes. Because I need to
more
build
likes,
an audience.
the more likes that he gets on our episodes, the more the algorithm will show it to other people that have never seen these before. And that's
Right.
always, a way of sharing again to this amazing toolbox that enriches people's lives.
Before we go, Carol, how did you wind up coming here?
Good question.
Shannon is my Pilates teacher, and she recommended her mom to me. So, yeah.
There you go. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thrilled that you came. Totally thrilled. Small world. And thank you, Shannon. And thank you, Patty. There we go.
Well, we look forward to having you back, Carol. I hope that you'll join us again. So,
Absolutely.
are we finito, Jane? Okay. Well, thank you all for being here, and we'll continue the foundations and the fundamentals next week for my models.
Mhm.
And bye for now.
Bye, guys. Well done.